Hello, and welcome to Soothing Pod Sleep Stories. My name is Arif, and I'll be guiding you to a night of peaceful, restful sleep by telling you the story of Tessabel and Ichabod's romantic Valentine's Day in a forest blanketed in snow. Before we begin, however, let us take a moment to relax and find comfort in the space that we are in. Close your eyes slowly and gently. As you do so, take a moment to scan your body for any discomfort or tension. Travel from your head down to your neck, across your shoulders, in your arms, and back up into your chest. Travel through your torso, down your back, and into your legs. Is there any tension in any of the areas you've just focused on? Take a brief second and focus on that tension. As you exhale, picture that tension melting away, leaving you with a body that is relaxed and ready to receive a full night's sleep. Now that your body is at ease, it is time for your mind to follow. With your eyes closed, picture a beautiful pine tree. It can be tall and thin, or short and wide, or anything in between. Are its branches long, or short and close together? What shade of green are the needles? And how many of them do you see on the forest floor? Once you've found your perfect pine tree, imagine snow falling around it. The big fluffy flakes move glacially slow, swaying in the breeze as they delicately gather at the trunk of the tree. With every exhale, imagine that snow clinging to the pine tree branches. At first, it was just dusting, but as you breathe more, in and out, in and out, in and out, in and out, a blanket of snow begins to gather on the branches. With these slow breaths, creating this world of snow and this winter shield for the tree, you're reminded that we all have our seasons and we all deserve some peaceful, quiet rest. Now that we've taken the time to calm down, let us journey to a castle in the mountains where our favorite couple resides. Tessabel could always tell when snow had fallen before she even awakened for the day. With her eyes closed, she would lay in silence, curled up under her downy comforters with a crackling fireplace at her feet. But this silence was different on snowy days. In spring and summer, there was a buzz in the air, a reminder that the seasons were a time for activity and fun, a reminder that the world was full of millions of other creatures, all outgoing about their lives and soaking in every last ray of sunshine. In fall, the soundscape of the surrounding forest took on a more hearty tone. With winter on the horizon, animals of all shapes and sizes were focused on work. They gathered nuts, winterized their homes with fluffy bits of cotton and moss, and enjoyed the vibrant sunsets. The air was alive with the sound of them scurrying across crunchy leaves, climbing into taller trees, lounging in the autumn breeze. But winter was different. Winter was a season of rest, reflection, and relaxation. Winter was a reminder that when conditions aren't ideal, we owe it to ourselves to be kind, be gentle, and try to find joy in the beauty of simplicity. In winter, the sounds of the forest were both muffled and amplified. There were less creatures scurrying around, with many of them curled up in their nests and burrows for the season. But the animals that were making their way through the forest weren't silenced by greenery and the ground. Now, in winter, the sounds were softer, more sweet. The sound of snow tumbling off of pines seemed to be the loudest sound in the forest. But if you listened closely, you could hear songbirds chirping in their branches, munching on seed they stored for the cold months. When Tessabel opened her eyes, it was as though she was looking at a painting, something too perfect for this world. The forest was coated in snow, a mosaic of sparkling white and vibrant earthy green. Heavy, wet snowflakes drifted from the dark clouds as if they were falling in slow motion. It was a breathtaking sight. She rolled over to awaken Ichabod, her husband, only to find that he had already left their warm, cozy bed for the morning. In his place, her kitten laid curled up in a ball, peacefully snoring and twitching her pink little nose. Tessabel got out of bed and, out of habit, went to wrap her fluffy shawl around herself. But that wouldn't be necessary, because Tessabel no longer got cold. Since Ichabod had given her the kiss of a vampire and transformed her into one, she never felt too hot or too cold. She always felt comfortable. She tiptoed down, 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 down their sycamore staircase, following the sound of Ichabod puttering around in the kitchen. She wondered what he was doing up this early. A smile grew on her face as she made her way down the long hallway to reach it. When she entered the kitchen, she wasn't quite prepared for what she saw. The kitchen had forest green counters and dark black marble, accented by ancient touches and trinkets Ichabod had collected in his centuries-long life. But this morning, the kitchen was illuminated with the soft light of dozens, if not hundreds of candles. They flickered against the walls, the cabinets, the ceiling, creating an otherworldly glow that simply took her breath away. And in the midst of it all were flowers, wildflowers of all colors and sizes, from regions across the world. The aroma she smelled was the aroma of all the flowers wafting through the house. "What's all this?" Tessabel asked, her eyes wide in awe and admiration as she gazed around the room that looked as though it was out of a dream. Ichabod responded in his calm, honey-sweet voice. "Tessabel, my dear, I didn't want you to fret, but today is Valentine's Day." Tessabel sat down at their table and gazed at Ichabod through the wall of flora. "Valentine's Day is a vampire tradition, my dear. Because of its history, I felt it was fitting for me to surprise you with our first celebration together," he explained. He sat down beside Tessabel, his eyes illuminated by the light of all those candles he had gathered. Centuries ago, vampires were incapable of falling in love. Back in the Dark Ages, a curse was put on our species by an evil sorcerer. We were forced to roam the earth without friends, without partners, without families. We were utterly and completely alone in all our endeavors, as if our hearts had been plucked out of our chests. That is when vampires retreated into castles, far in the forest, away from humans and away from one another. We were forced to live in solitude for hundreds of years. But then, despite everything, there was a day of hope, a day where everything changed. A vampire went for a walk in the snowy woods and encountered a beautiful sorceress who was performing magic in the caves. When she saw the vampire, her heart skipped a beat. She tried to shake the thought from her mind and continued practicing her sorcery. She sat over a puddle meant to show her a window into her future. But what appeared in that puddle wasn't at all what she imagined. It was her and the vampire, curled up by a crackling fire and wildly in love. She knew that magic doesn't lie. She knew that was her future. So she searched through the woods as snow fell around her, calling out for the vampire. Finally, she found him and led him to the caves. There, she performed a spell, lifting the curse forever. Ever since, vampires have been capable of love. It snapped back into use like a missing puzzle piece. To commemorate it, every year, we celebrate on the human holiday of Valentine's Day. Tessabel hung on to every word that Ichabod said as his voice descended into the silky smooth register of someone completely transfixed in the story they were telling. She had never quite thought of the history of vampires, never thought about how turbulent their place in history truly was. And now, it was her history as well. Tessabel sat at the table beside her husband and found herself sitting before yet another surprise. In the center of the table, there was a crystal bowl full of water. "What is this for?" she asked, daring to dip her fingertips on the smooth surface. "This is how we begin our Valentine's Day. You may not think of ourselves as magical, but truly, we are. There is magic inside every vampire, and some of that magic dates back to that sorceress in the caves. Every Valentine's Day, one partner looks into the water and sees a glimpse of their future. It's always a happy moment. Some vampires think it may even be the happiest moment of their lives." Tessabel gazed into the bowl of water and gently asked, "How do I do it?" Ichabod smiled and placed his hand over hers. Gently, he sunk her hand into the cold water. As he did, a faint golden light began to hum and glow from the bottom of the bowl. A warm, sensational, powerful feeling she had never felt before began to radiate from somewhere deep inside herself, spilling out from her fingertips. Slowly, an image began to form in the water, rippling across it like a magical wave. It was clear as day, undeniable. Tessabel felt a sense of wonder wash over her, and then confusion. It was a moving picture of her and Ichabod. They were in a field coated in wildflowers, reclining in a bed of lilac lupines. They were smiling and laughing, exchanging looks of pure admiration and love. They gazed out into the distance and smiled at the sight of two children playing in the distance. Tessabel felt a rush of emotions flood her body. In the vision, Tessabel handed Ichabod a child's toy. They both smiled fondly over it. Slowly, ever so slowly, the vision began to disappear. Tessabel kept her hand in the water, desperate to see more, but nothing appeared. How could her and Ichabod have children? If what Ichabod said was true, then there was no denying this was their future. Tessabel looked at Ichabod. opening her mouth to tell him everything, but Ichabod lifted a finger to her lips. The vision of your future is for you, and you only. It's my gift to you, and next year, you'll give the same gift to me. She ached to tell Ichabod the truth, but she simply smiled at him, seeing him in a new light, seeing the future of their relationship in a different way. Later tonight, it's tradition for us to visit the caves where the curse on vampires was lifted. But until then, we can do whatever our hearts desire, Ichabod explained. So, what would you like to do with our day, my dear? Ichabod asked. Tessabel pondered this for a long moment. She gazed out the window, taking in the softly falling snow, watching chipmunks and squirrels scurry across the fresh layer. I think we should spend the day outside, enjoying the snow, she chimed. Ichabod's eyes lit up as he followed her gaze out to the winter wonderland. Within minutes, they were both outside. Tessabel opted for a dark green, flowing wool cape to complement the snowy pines. Ichabod cloaked himself in his usual, a woven black cape. The second they stepped out into the world, they both took a deep inhale of the cold air. It was brisk in a way that only winter air can be, utterly fresh, sharp, and invigorating. Overhead, the dark clouds were thick and would usually be imposing, but they only seemed to make the landscape pop even more. The snowflakes dancing around them were thick and absolutely beautiful. Each one drifted to the ground at its own pace, catching on cross breezes and, at times, flitting across the sky like birds gliding down from the treetops. Everything was like poetry, slow, breathtaking, ethereal in a way that is impossible to replicate anywhere else. It was as if life was wrapping them in that blanket of white and urging them to slow down and appreciate all the beauty that can be found in a winter's day. So, that's just what they did. Ice skates and an antique wooden sled in hand, the two tiptoed into the forest, relishing in the crunch, 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 crunch of snow under their feet, a sound unlike any other. They listened for snow tumbling off the lofty branches of pine trees, landing in a hollow thump at the base. They closed their eyes and breathed in the sound of chickadees and cardinals singing their song into a world of ice and snow. Beyond it all, they could even hear a woodpecker peck, peck, pecking against the bark of a hardy oak tree, searching for the riches within. Yes, the forest was indeed alive, but in a way that seldom people get to truly enjoy and experience. Ichabod and Tessabel stole glances at one another, their eyes sparkling with the magic of the moment. They had this forest all to themselves, aside from the marvelous creatures within it, and that in itself felt like the greatest gift of all. They made their way to Tessabel's favorite spot on the property, the spot where Ichabod turned her into a vampire. During spring, summer, and fall, a waterfall tumbled from the granite cliffs in her favorite spot. But now, the cliffs were speckled with millions of snowflakes and icicles that clung against the wall in massive heaps, seemingly defying gravity. She imagined the wall of moss that blanketed the granite most of the year, and found comfort in the fact that soon it would be back. For now, it was resting. There was another important transformation that took place here every year. The pool of water that normally rested at the base of the cliff was iced over, creating a small ice rink in the middle of the evergreen forest. Tessabelle hadn't ice skated since she was a child. When she was younger, she adored it. It was the one thing that made her feel free, that made her feel as though the world was meant for her. But as she grew and was forced to work, her hobby lost its sparkle. She didn't have time to journey out into the forest in search of the perfect patch of ice. But that changed now. She knelt beside her husband, helping him lace up his ice skates. Though he had lived for centuries, he had never ice skated before, for he had no one to do it with until he met Tessabelle. He was always delighted to find things he had never done before, always reminded that no matter what he sees, there were more joys to be found in life. Tessabelle held Ichabod's hands, helping him rise up on the ice. Instantly, though he wasn't particularly good, Ichabod knew he was in love, just from seeing the way Tessabelle's eyes welled with appreciation and joy. As he watched her guide him onto the ice and saw the smile on her face, he realized that there was nothing he wouldn't do to see that expression, nothing he wouldn't do to see her be truly happy. The two held hands and slowly made their way around the ice, gliding effortlessly. As snow gathered around their skates, they simply slid right through it, painting intricate patterns on the surface of the ice. Tessabelle broke off of Ichabod for just an instant, effortlessly making her way to the center of the ice. She kicked off, spinning, 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 spinning around and around and around and around. She felt the cold, fresh winter breeze dance through her hair. She felt the large snowflakes kiss her cheeks and stick to her dark eyelashes. When she finished, she locked her eyes with her husband, who made his way across the ice to kiss her. As their lips brushed against one another, Tessabelle couldn't help but wrap her arms around Ichabod, pulling him in closer against her. She loved the way he ran his hands through her hair, the way he brushed his thumb against her cheek as he gazed into her eyes. Soon, they were finished skating. They sat down at the edge of the ice. Ichabod poured a cup of hot soup out of a thermos, handing it to Tessabelle with a smile. They clinked their old cups together and breathed in the sweet aroma of homemade stew as they sipped it in comfortable silence. They sat there for quite some time, watching snowflakes disappear into their broth and collect on each other's eyelashes and hair. Before long, the forest around them was darkening. Touches of red and pink peeked out from behind the clouds, the last bit of daylight painting its artistic goodbye. Ichabod took Tessabelle by the hand and led her along the edge of the cliffs. As they journeyed further and further into the woods, Tessabelle was surprised to hear the sound of music. It was a violin, playing a melody that could bring tears to your eyes. "Are there others here?" Tessabelle asked. Ichabod nodded. "Indeed, vampires from all over gather here on this day." Tessabelle felt the fluttering feeling of butterflies in her stomach. The only vampire she had ever met was Ichabod. For so long, it felt like they were all alone in the world. Since she had grown up without her own parents, Ichabod was the only family that she had. But as they turned into the labyrinth of caves, Tessabelle had a feeling that would change. Much like their kitchen, the caves were aglow with the light of thousands and thousands of candles. Flowers lined the floor from wall to wall, with narrow pathways in between for vampires to pass. All the other vampires greeted Tessabel with a smile. She waved to them in awe, giving herself a moment to take in what a beautiful gathering they had created. People played centuries-old vampire songs on the violin, songs that both soothed and inspired. Everyone looked so at peace, so happy, so together. Some vampires danced in the candlelight, looking into each other's eyes with longing and admiration. "Is there anything we're supposed to do?" Tessabel asked. Ichabod rubbed Tessabel's soft hand with his thumb, comforting her. "We're meant to enjoy ourselves. At the end of the night, we each light a candle in the upper caves to signify our love." For the next few hours, Tessabel and Ichabod did as they pleased. In that cave, tucked deep within the forest in a sprawling, mountainous countryside, was a haven, a reminder of the power of connection and love. Every vampire they spoke with was wise, patient, and kind. They treated Tessabel as if they had known her forever, which was more than anyone in the town had done for her in her entire life. The mere thought almost brought tears to her eyes. After so long, she had found her family, even if it was in an unconventional way. Soon, it was time to light the candles. Everyone journeyed upstairs, flowers and fire in hand. They each paired off into rooms with their partners. The caves overlooked the landscape from what seemed to be a mountaintop. Below, Tessabel could see every inch of the forest blanketed by snow. Far, far below, she could make out the town, which seemed to glow orange against the snow-covered hills. Overhead, the clouds had cleared, revealing a night with a million stars. Ichabod and Tessabel breathlessly stared at the inky black sky, amazed that a view like this could even exist. It was otherworldly, seemingly too perfect to exist. "Tessabel, I've wondered my whole life what it was like up here. I spent so many centuries alone, worried that I'd never find anyone. And then you walked into my life. I couldn't ask for a better partner, for a better wife," Ichabod whispered, taking Isabel's face in his hands. Happy tears welled in Tessabel's eyes as she whispered back, "Ichabod, I never had a family. I wasn't sure where I was going to end up in life. I wasn't sure if I was ever going to find love. But then, you wandered into my shop. For so long, I didn't believe in fate. But finding someone as perfect for me as you has changed everything." They held each other for a long moment, lost in the sweetness of the embrace, touched by the fact that after so long, their dreams had come true. It was truly incredible how two lonely worlds can collide and make something so beautiful. Ichabod wrapped his arm around Tessabel yet again, breathing in the beauty of the view. In the far distance, they could make out their castle, the home they had made together. For a brief moment, Ichabod thought of all the joys they had shared in that house, and how many joys there were to come. As the violin songs around them came to a gentle end, they both realized it was time to do what they came to do. They wrapped their hands together and inched the flame toward their candle. The simple black candle caught slowly, filling the cave with the sweet aroma of lavender and sage. The flame, to their surprise, was blue. It cracked and danced against the night sky, creating a spectacle that was truly otherworldly. They sat in the cave talking with each other for quite some time, discussing their fears, their dreams, their pasts. By the time the candle had finally stopped flickering, they knew it was time to go home. They left the cave with new spirits and made their way through the snow back home. Tessabel led them with another candle, which glowed orange against the snow, catching individual snowflakes and lighting them up like a million diamonds. Overhead, they could hear the sound of owls hoot, 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 hooting into the brisk night air. The crunch of the snow seemed even more satisfying and sweet under their feet as they traced new pathways through the forest, ducking underneath trees and in between groves of pines. Finally, they reached their home. Their kitten greeted them with a precious chirp, and before long, they were all curled up together in their warm bed. Sleep came the easiest that it ever had. The day was a day of romance, of love, of pure joy, and it left them both feeling refreshed in ways they never had before. As they both drifted off to sleep, they thought deeply about how lucky they were to have found each other, how lucky they were to have found a love as pure and perfect as this. I hope you've enjoyed this sleep story and it has helped you reach a night of peaceful, restful sleep. Please join me again tomorrow for another sleep story. Until then, sweet dreams.